Hey there, who's happy for a Friday? And nothing better than having Chase Brooke here with me. I think one of the smartest men that you'll ever run into. So he's here joining us on a great TNT Guest Friday. Chase, you're the man.
Oh, appreciate that, Mike. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we had the opportunity to get together and discuss one property to kind of start with, right? So at first, I'll hit all the things like roll call. We'll talk about where we are on Twitch and Twitter and all those things here in just a second. But first, I just want people to like know who you are and what you're kind of like about where we kind of met.
All right. So I can go ahead and introduce myself.
Yeah,
then,
do
I
it.
guess so. Yeah. So I'm Chase Brooke, obviously, and I work as the county extension agent for agriculture and natural resources here in Collin County, Texas. So I cover Collin County and one of the 250 offices that cover the entire state of Texas. So I'm kind of like the local representative here and put on workshops and education and stuff. We'll talk a little bit more about that later.
We totally will. So this guy is amazing. And you guys, when you're watching this here, what I would do is I would tag this as one of the best episodes that you'll ever watch as far as information and as far as knowledge and as far as the quality of the guest here. It's impressive. Okay. So kind of pay attention to that one and make sure that you have this marked as a resource that you can go through because it's pretty good. And then, so let's go back and we'll refresh this and we'll go to the top and we'll say that, hey, thanks for joining us. If you're on YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter, that's an important item of kind of what we do here. We go live every morning, 8:45 a.m. So thank you guys for joining us there. And then we do our roll call. So for roll call, what we do is we kind of chat out there and we say like, hey, chat in that you're present, right? It's an important part of creating a daily routine. Do you have a daily routine? Anything in particular
yeah.
you kind of start with?
Oh yeah, wake up at 5:30 in the morning, put on the
5:30.
coffee, walk the dog,
Okay.
get caught up on life, and then roll out to the office. So very important.
Good. Okay. So what is the one thing that you have during the day that you kind of like dread just a little bit? Because what we do after roll call and after TNT is we're setting this habit and routine.
Yep.
And then we ask the agents to do the most difficult thing of the day immediately so they get it done, right?
Yep.
So what's your kind of one item in your work?
Oh, paperwork.
Paperwork?
As a government employee, it's paperwork.
Okay.
Rip that Band-Aid off, get it done quickly, and then move on to the fun things in life.
Yep. So that we kind of have about the same thing is the agents sometimes have phone calls that they have to return or like, that they have to call friends. So we call a friend a lead.
Yep.
Because no one wants to be like a lead. Like, hey, can you call up 20 leads today? They're like, no, I don't like that. Let's call some friends. So that's kind of what we have. So I'm glad we're able to just talk through that and see some things that were important to each of us and what we kind of don't like as well, right? And then some of the things that you really like. What are those?
Oh, well, I mean, that's interacting with with people.
Okay.
I mean, going out on, farm visits, having clientele come in the office, that kind of thing. That's what's fun. Getting that interaction, the problem solving,
Isn't it crazy you always find time for that?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like the fun stuff. So that is amazing. You never forget to have fun. You never forget to do things that you really like. You don't have to worry about it. It just happens, right? And then we're going to have a real estate word of the day today with us today. And we are going to cover...
Well, the word today is remediate. And specifically looking at restoring and improving land or property. Very positive focused remediation, because really that's remediate to me is looking forward. What is the potential? What can we do to make this better?
So we're going to cover 3 different topics today, plus that word of the day. The first topic we're going to cover is, who is this guy, right? So we're going to go over that and kind of cover that in depth and see what he's all about. We're going to see where he went to school. We're going to give it a shout out there. We're going to see, I think he has 16 jobs that he has to do simultaneously. So we're going to have to talk to the state about, why does this guy have to work so hard just to make a living? That's crazy, right? And where you've been and some things you like. We'll talk about all of those things all in one. And then we're going to talk about rural land and real estate. So it's really a key thing here. And with that, there's a bunch of different things under there. I was able to meet you through Dr. Blake Bennett. So we kind of got together there and you did some work and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing, right? So I was super happy about that. And then topic 3, we are going to talk about...
land improvements and remediation for buying a property in Texas.
Yep. Very good. That was perfect. I just highlighted that, and you were right on it. You were like, "Hey, I know exactly where we're going."
A&M taught me how to read real good. Don't
Well,
worry.
that was good. It picked it up. Did it teach you Aggie engineering though?
Well, I did get through 2 semesters of engineering before I switched to agriculture, and
Okay.
but that doesn't inspire confidence when I tell people that when I'm building stuff.
No, it does not. Part of Aggie engineering we were at one of the football games when it first opened up, and then all of a sudden none of the toilets worked, and they go over the announcements, and they're like, I don't know how to tell you this, but like none of the bathrooms work. If you want to go to the bathroom, go over to what is it, like the common area or something? And it was like, oh no, the MSR?
MSC, Memorial Student
MSC.
Center.
Yeah, go over there and you can use the restroom. And it's like, what? It's like, please don't flush all the toilets at the same time. Kind of like Texas is like, don't use your power during the summer. Like, oh, okay, that's cool. That's a good idea. So maybe the Aggies were also working on the power grid. Maybe we need to do something about that. So without further ado, that's amazing. I hope you guys are all buckled in. If you have your seatbelt on, I would definitely tighten it down just a little bit because it's going to be a wild ride. Go ahead and hit the bell, and let's move on.
All right. I was going to ask if it's
Yeah. Oh, that would have been good. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Chase Brooke. He is a county extension agent, and 100%, he's a badass. He knows all types of things. He's super smart. He's quick on the draw. We're going to discuss who he is, right? We're going to go over what goes on. We're going to see what he likes. We're going to find out his deepest, darkest fears and all of that and more here in just a second. So, Chase, kind of like describe yourself and start and tell us what you're all about.
Yeah, so I work as a county extension agent for the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. We're part of the A&M University system. Went to school there, got my bachelor's and master's at Texas A&M, and I liked it so much that I went to go work for them. Have an affinity for the colors maroon and white too. And so really what I do is I work in the county as like a local resource for pretty much anyone, farmers, ranchers, landowners, real estate agents. I'm here to provide education and information, right? So I put on workshops and programs, seminars, but I also do a lot of day-to-day question and answer, whether it's someone who, literally will bring in a bucket full of weeds they dug up out of their pasture, and like, what are these? And helping them identify them. The ones that they send via email are a little more convenient. Phone calls, what's wrong with my pond? Why is my cow walking funny? Hey, I just bought a property. I have 50 acres now, and what do I do with it? Kind of covering, I would say the way we typically describe it is we're all about a mile wide and, some places an inch deep, some places a foot. But we cover pretty much everything. Like I said, ag and natural resources related here.
The amount of things that you know is just tremendous. Your depth and breadth of the items just like goes and goes and goes. So some of the questions I asked you when we were walking around the property in general were things, like a bunch of crazy ones. I was like, hey, where should this tree go? What is this one? Where do I plant this? How do I do this? We were worried about like soil erosion, and you told different types of different ways to stop that. Like, what could we do here? How could we do that? Right? And we just walked around, and he just like knows it all. And you just walk through, and you're like, wow, that's really impressive. Then I'm like, hey, let's get rid of poison ivy. So I have a small patch right here of poison ivy, and that's always a prize when you get to wear that badge.
Yep.
But you told me how to get rid of poison ivy easy on the property, and that was?
Well, I'm a big proponent of bringing goats on. If you can keep them corralled, they love eating poison ivy. It's like candy to them. You might not want to hug them for a little bit after, but they will eat the tar out of it. And it's a good alternative especially for areas where maybe you don't want to spray, pesticides or herbicides. Maybe it's a little too close to, a playground or a water body. They can be a ton of fun. I was actually out wrangling goats yesterday. I'm not even kidding. I was the designated goat wrangler for our horse show.
And then you said, so they're kind of like a center pivot, right? You put them down.
Yeah, put a leash on it, one of those little harnesses like you get on a dog, and just put it on a stake, and it'll just eat everything in that circle.
Yeah, so that'll help us out there. So I need to just get a goat. I'll have to go talk to a guy about a goat sometime here pretty soon and see if we get that all solved. Do you have any other like interesting tidbits, just like random fun facts that you want to throw out there?
Oh, I mean, I am full of interesting tidbits.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
totally
my
are.
office mates are probably tired of them at this point.
Uh-huh.
But one of the fun things, and I shared this with you when we
Yeah.
were out on that property visit. So we have all these cedar trees, these eastern red cedars that grow up here. You actually have male and female trees, and the male ones are the ones that cause allergies. So if you're looking at cutting down a bunch of eastern red cedars, cut down the male ones. They're the ones that are orange with all the pollen in February, or this time you're the ones without the berries on them. Cut those down, and it should help with your allergies.
Isn't that crazy? Just like that one fun fact, and you're like, whoa, okay. And then we were talking about like some grasses the other day when we were out there, right? And you're like, oh, you want this grass, but not this grass, and like all these different things, and how you can test the soil, and there's just like so many items that I want to get to, right? Talk about maybe soil testing because that was kind of
Yeah.
cool for nutrients and whatever.
Yeah, so one of the services we provide, and there are other labs around the state, but is soil testing as a service. So really being able to go in, you dig up some soil from across your yard or your garden or your pasture, and you mail it into our soil testing lab, and they'll analyze it and send you back a result of what nutrients are in there, and so you can know exactly how much fertilizer you need to add. Right? And so, the idea is then you're not wasting any money by putting on fertilizer you don't need, or, you might be under applying fertilizer and your lawn isn't looking as good as a result. So being able to really tie in exactly what you need and dial in your management regime can save you a lot of time, money, and heartache.
And so it could be different from one piece of property to the next, right?
Absolutely.
So like your neighbor and yourself could have different ones.
Yeah, it's even different. It can even be different from your front yard to your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
When we were walking around, we were pointing out like you could see almost where the soils change.
Well, he could see.
Well,
Yeah.
it's the glasses.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I'll put these on next time I walk outside. I'll totally know the difference in the soils then.
But yeah, and so you can actually have a difference in the front yard or the backyard, and whether that's soils, and maybe it's the same soil type. But you know what? Maybe you don't fertilize the backyard as often just because maybe people don't see it as much.
Mm-hmm.
But those kinds of things, I would always recommend you test them separately. Then that way you get kind of a very customized, personalized analysis result to use for when you're doing your yard work.
Yeah, that was tremendous. And you said there's an app for that, right? And tell me about because there's a huge study done on it.
Yeah.
I had no earthly idea.
Yeah.
My mind was blown.
Yeah, and so and that goes back to back in the 1900s through I think they finished in like 2017 or somewhere more recently than you think. They surveyed every single soil in this United States.
Okay, so just stop and think about that for just a second, everybody, right? All the soil was sampled in like the whole country.
Mm-hmm.
And it's already done. It's been mapped.
Yep, and it was done through I think it was the Department of Interior and the USDA went through and categorized and classified all those soils so that we know, you can pull up a map through an app like SoilWeb from UC Davis or the USDA's Web Soil Survey and pull up a map of exactly what kind of soil you're on, and not just what kind of soil, but all the characteristics. Is it good for building a road? Is it good for planting corn? Should you build a house on it? What can you expect as far as how deep it is? And they really go into the weeds, if you would, on all the different properties of these soils, and it's a very useful resource when you're just trying to wrap your head around what you've got and where you are.
Yeah. So let's go into some of your. So you go out and you do all these site visits and you get to have all these client interactions.
Yep.
Tell me some of these things when you go out there, like your time when you're standing there and you're just like, hey, this is amazing. You just kind of feel like goosebumps. What does that for you?
Oh, man, it's when I'm walking out, not in August, not in January.
Okay.
When we're kind of like that nice April time frame when, the weather's cool, you got some nice sunshine. Walking out and just the air's real crisp, in the morning and just looking out and there's just like a beautiful pasture, got, maybe some livestock, little pond. You just sit there and you're just like, dang, I didn't know there's...
Do you want it with like a little bit of dew on the ground or like what are you looking for there?
So it depends. If I'm wearing my muck boots, the dew's nice.
Yeah.
If I'm wearing my normal slip-on boots, they get a little damp. But, wet feet is worth it.
Okay.
because I'm typically only out there for an hour or two anyway. So
Yep.
it's like, I can dry them off later.
Yeah. And then like the sun rising. So I have no idea. Maybe I'm getting super old, but like a great sunrise and a great sunset
Oh,
really
absolutely.
does it for me as well. And we kind of have that in the background here with the wheat and everything going on. But as I've been getting older, I really enjoy a really good sunset, especially. I don't know. There's just kind of something about it.
Yeah, and we had some beautiful ones this past spring.
Yeah.
Actually, even last month with all the storms, just, oh man.
Yep. So I really enjoy that. I hope you guys do as well. And I think that's kind of good for topic one. If you would hit the bell, we'll move on. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Chase Brooke, probably the smartest, coolest guy I've ever met. He has a really nice hat and a really good job description, and he knows so much stuff. It's insane. I feel like I'm Crazy Eddie describing what this guy's all about, but he's that good. I can't hype him up enough. We're going to talk about rural land and real estate, and Chase is going to kind of walk us through that. We're going to talk about matching clients and their needs to the land. We're going to talk about recent purchasing trends. You had some amazing things to talk about there. Why don't we just kind of start there? You had a quote.
Yeah. One of the things, especially on the recent purchasing trends, right now, and especially in Collin County, I believe it's, still has the title of the fastest growing county in Texas. We, trying to buy ag land for this moment right now is the competition is fierce, shall we say. And that's a trend we're seeing across the state. But in some cases, it's like trying to buy a house in Seattle, especially, in that small acreage, 10 to 50 acre range. There's a lot of interest in people moving out and buying their own piece of land and getting more connected with that rural landscape and lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. When you see that, do you have any specific things except that it's super busy, right? Like anything in particular that you're seeing is super, super noteworthy?
I think it's just the trend. It hasn't picked up quite this hot, it wasn't quite this hot in the last couple of years, but really, like I said, we've been the fastest growing county in Texas for a number of years now, and that's on residential or agricultural land. And so it's just, it's gone from about a 9 to about 11.
Yeah, right.
But
I was talking with Trevor Thompson, right?
Oh, yeah, I know
okay,
Trevor.
So
He's a great guy.
I figured you know him. I just throw anything out there and he knows what it is, right?
Yeah.
So I was talking with Trevor and he's like, he basically can't lend anywhere almost, where he can lend is just shot up way super far north, right? And I don't know if, considered ag for the land, right? Like the price behind it, it's super far north on where you kind of have to go now.
Yeah, and that's one of the things where, it depends a lot on what you're trying to do with that land. Oftentimes once you start reaching the price points we're seeing here, it's not necessarily about, buying the land to make a living. It's about buying the land to live the lifestyle and to enjoy engaging in agriculture in whatever form you enjoy. Whether that's, you've always wanted to raise cattle, or maybe you had cattle as a kid. Or, you really want to have just that, big homestead. You have the big garden out back, or you want to raise some vegetables and sell at the local farmers market.
So there's a word there that we've used when we're looking at properties in like in Montana in particular, a gentleman's ranch. Is that something that kind of translates? Is that like a word that?
I would say some parts of it do, right? Because I think, especially up in the Montana area, it's a very different kind of landscape, right? What I see here, you have a lot of the gentleman's ranch, but you also have a lot, I would say, the country homestead is really what drives a lot of this. You want to be able, you work in Frisco, you work in Dallas, McKinney, and at the end of the day, you want to go back and just, sit on that back porch, enjoy that sunset, looking over some property. You've got some chickens over there that, you get fresh eggs from every day, and just, again, kind of bringing people back to their roots and back into the countryside.
And the virus definitely did that, right? It was this huge explosion of like, you can work from home. And maybe people looked at it and maybe they're reflecting like, life's a little shorter than I think maybe, right? And it's like, if I'm going to do this, just go ahead. And why am I in the city if and all of those different things, right?
Yeah.
Like I have these opportunities.
Yeah. Well, especially in Collin County, we have, we're lucky enough to have good access to cell coverage and to internet in many places, which allowed a lot of people to, maybe they had land and they were able to move out there full time and still work remotely.
Hmm. So we have a lady that works with us. Shout out to
Mm-hmm.
Megan Rutherford, who is in Cody, Wyoming, just
Mm-hmm.
outside Yellowstone. And out there, they had the Elon Musk internet with Starlink. And
Mm-hmm.
that's been moving throughout. And
Mm-hmm.
is that a concept?
Yeah, yeah, I'm familiar with Starlink.
And it's starting to work. So
Mm-hmm.
we've had reports from up there that because it's kind of starting in the northern latitudes and it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
coming down,
Mm-hmm.
and they're at like verifiable all over the place there. It's totally transformed the place, and they're getting like 150 up and 150
Mm-hmm.
down, and it's real internet that really
Yeah,
works.
yeah. I mean, and that's the kind of thing that is transformative when we think about rural areas and rural land, because, in the 21st century, I mean, you got to have, you have to have access to internet. And especially, like you said, over the last year, people have realized, hey, maybe there's some jobs that can be done remotely, or remote, 70% remote, 30% in the office. And then, well, would I want to drive into the office, or maybe would I want to do it again, where you got that beautiful view and that beautiful land?
Yeah. So you use the word transformative, and I think it
Mm-hmm.
is that big of a deal on kind of what's going on now. I see this huge thing going on, and I've talked about it before, where we've went through like an industrial revolution,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where we had huge
Mm-hmm.
expansion with the internet, and there was kind of like
Mm-hmm.
this internet time where all these things boomed,
Mm-hmm.
and I see this as another time that's going on right now within what we're doing. And it's like this huge expansion of everybody getting their space, and it's this redistribution and reuse of the land and reappropriating it in a lot of different ways, where people now are going to be moving from super tight compact places to have a little bit more space. And I see it, I don't know what the word is, but it's like a great reshuffling of kind of what's going on. And I think, when we look back on it 100 years from now, we're going to be like, whoa, that was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see some of those types of
Yeah, and
things?
I think the word I would use is, it's a rural migration.
Okay.
So you're seeing folks who, again, maybe they move to those urban centers where, that's where a lot of the jobs were, or a lot of, specific kinds of jobs that, people had, I mean, they moved for, and suddenly, some of those are able to be done, remotely, or to be done in a more flexible manner. And, like you said, I mean, there's a big shift going on in who can work where, and then where industries are located. I mean, here in Collin County, having large corporations. I mean, PGA just moved over to Frisco.
Mm-hmm.
Toyota a couple years back. There's a lot of shuffling going on that is also, it's not just all the way on the East Coast or the West Coast. There's a lot of movement around the country and the state.
And I think people get reinvigorated when they get to have this rural space and have some different things going on, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my wife's out there at our property, and we have new things like zero turn mowers, right? So we bought a new zero turn
yeah?
since you've been up there
Nice.
last. Yeah, we have
Nice.
a John Deere Z-Track
Nice.
950M. You're probably like, wow, that's a good one, right? 72-inch deck.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's
see?
big. I
Yeah.
mean, it would mow my lawn at home in probably like 2 minutes.
Yeah, so that's awesome. But people get all these different things, and it's a complete shift, because all of a sudden you're spending money differently. You're spending it in different pockets. You all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden have like a rewards card at Tractor Supply,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yep.
you're part of, what is it? Like they have a family? What do they call that?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, but you're a member at Tractor Supply all of a sudden,
Mm-hmm.
and you're doing all these different things, spending money differently, learning new skills, and it's impressive. And this guy is here for you to be able to help out.
Yeah, I mean, because that's one of the things that really, in a rapidly growing area, one of my big realms I work in is really focusing on engaging folks who are new to owning land or haven't been out on it in a while, and helping that set them up for success, right? So, in many cases, it's, advising them on, what do you want to do on your land? You have this property and it's your property. You can do whatever you want on it. But if you want to, keep things like an ag valuation, well, I meet with a lot of people and just kind of figure out, hey, what do you want to do? How does that fit within what the appraisal district says qualifies for ag use? Does that fit for your purpose? And even going into things, like buying equipment, when does it make sense? When does it not? Some things, if you have an implement that you're going to use twice a year, does it make sense to rent it? Does it make sense to buy it? Can you go halvesies with your neighbor and then, kind of timeshare it? How does that work? And, really kind of bring that learning curve from a cliff to a slope. And, and that's, like I said, through calls. I do a lot of workshops. We have like a landowner 101 we do every year. We're in the middle of it right now. And really helping get people on board and get their feet under them so they know kind of some the basic information, and more importantly, what questions to ask and who to ask them to.
Well, my next question for you then is going to be, how much land should each person kind of get? I know it depends, right? But sometimes you see people getting like way too much or way too little. Is there kind of a sweet spot if I'm taking my first step out there and I'm going to get some land? What amount would you kind of be saying kind of look for? Give me some guidance.
And that's, I'm going to give you the extension answer.
Okay.
It depends, because it really is very, one, buying land, of course, is a very personal choice. And it really comes down to, what do you enjoy? What do you want to do with it? Right? If I would say if you want to raise cattle, you're going to need at least probably 10, 12 acres of agricultural land, which if you had an acre for a homestead, you're looking at 13 acres, right?
Okay.
Based on, that would, the concept of a stocking rate, how many acres do you need to provide all the forage for one cow per year, so you're not having to spend $8,000 a year buying hay. Which is a very common question I get. It's not, it's just for a lack of information. Folks, hey, how do I buy less hay? What do I need to do? And then we have a really good conversation. Yeah, I mean, because it's, like you said, you go to Tractor Supply, there are a lot of things you can buy for a ranch. And so it's all about being strategic, and then where can you save, where should you spend? And I mean, that really...
Okay, so you kind of like this 10-acre-ish area for a lot of people, right?
I would say as a start, but again, it's, some people, 10 acres that is very, that's what they've always dreamed. Some people really, they want 100 acres, 500 acres. If you want privacy, how far do you need to be from your neighbors for you to feel like you have your privacy, right? I mean, that changes person to person. So I don't give a recommendation on what size property to buy, but that's something where folks can call me, and based on what they want, we can try to figure it out. And that's where, I know we're going to touch on in one of the later discussions, where a real estate agent can really come in and provide a service for a client who maybe doesn't know quite what they want, or they have an idea, but not necessarily the kind of property it would take to fulfill that.
Yeah, no, you've been tremendously helpful here on this. I would say that almost any amount of rural land is going to be better than something you have kind of like in the city, so to speak. I mean, you right where we are in Frisco, it seems like I can put my arm out and touch like the fence, and the neighbor puts their arm out like we're interlocked. It's really crazy how close we are. So privacy, I don't know, almost any amount is going to get me a lot more than 90% of Frisco for sure, right? So that's pretty good. I'm saying that you need, once you kind of have a few acres, 2 or 3 acres, then over that, I personally feel there's kind of like this diminishing return with the additional stuff that you can kind of do. Once you get past that base that the first couple of acres is going to get you space, privacy, a little bit of that compared to living in Frisco or something, right? In a traditional community. And then after that, you'll then pick what you kind of want to do.
Yeah, I mean, because after about 3 acres, that's when you really, 3 to 5 acres, depending. That's when you really start needing to really think about that ag use valuation for a property and what you would want to do that would fit within that. Of course, every appraisal district is different in how they qualify land for agricultural use. But, that's over the 3 acres, that's when I'd start thinking about that and think about it ahead of time. If you know what you want before you buy or when you buy, that's going to save you a lot of grief later on when when you get that letter in the mail to renew your ag use valuation.
Yeah. So I think tree farm. I don't know. It just kind of speaks to me. Somebody I knew had one, and I don't know. I just look at it and it seems a little low maintenance, and maybe we put in tree farm. Fannin always seems to do really, really well, and they charge these super premium prices. I don't know. It's going to take a long time. Did you know that I got a giant sequoia seed?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
We were off at Half Dome, and I picked up some of that stuff on our trip, and I grabbed a bunch of them. So I'm going to be putting a bunch of giant sequoias out there on the property, and I'm going to start growing those. It's probably going to take a little while. That's going to be a long-term payoff.
So let's say, you can always visit with me, and we'll talk about what you might need to do to keep them alive.
Yeah, I have a lot of things to do, and so we'll definitely have to talk about that. I heard that what do we have too much of in our soil for that to work right? I have to...
I think it's more of a climate thing. We get, sequoias grow on that west, like kind of that northern west coast where it's very moist. You have a lot of moisture in the air and it rains frequently, kind of that northern California, Oregon kind of climate. And over here, our climate is very much, you're either drowning or you're droughting. Mm-hmm. And, that can be incredibly stressful for plants that don't grow here. On top of our soils, especially in Collin County, we have those... Houston black clay soils that are just the sticky, gummy soil. You take every step you take, you grow an inch because it keeps sticking to the bottom of the sole of your shoe. And that is a very challenging challenging medium for a lot of plants to grow in. And, and it's really easy to, the most common way that people kill their houseplants in Collin County is they drown them. Or they love them to death, as we say.
These giant sequoias have a 3,000-year lifespan, and I'm excited that we're going to start out on the right foot, and I'm going to have you help me figure this out. And if that includes buying land somewhere else to plant these trees, maybe that's the answer at the end of the day. I don't know, but we're going to have to figure that bad boy out. I get myself into some real pickles, but I'm glad you're there to pick up the pieces for us. Let's hit the bell and move on to the next topic. Land improvements and remediation for Texas landowners. You're out there and you're thinking to yourself, wow, I just bought some land or I'm considering it. And you're like, hey, what I need to do is I need to know how to use it, what I can do with it. Like, how do I make this land better? There's so many different things out there. Did you buy 1 acre and think you're a landowner? Did you buy 5, 10 and think like I'm going to stick my toe in here? Is it like, are you buying 100 acres, 500 acres? I walked a property the other day that was 17,000 acres, right? And I didn't walk the whole thing. That would have taken a while, right? But you have different items that go on. And this is Chase Brooke. He is really smart and beyond impressive. And we're going to kind of talk about different things like ponds, fences, plants, trees, all those types of things. Chase, pick one of them and let's talk.
Yeah, so one of the things, and this is a question I often get from real estate agents and folks just looking to buy land, is what kind of property should I look for? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've had some feedback from these clients is how do I know what's right? And it's real. When we look online at the MLS and things like that, it's real easy to sort by price, acreage, location. But not necessarily, looking at, hey, is the pond in good shape? Do they have fences? Are the fences worth anything? How do you assess that, right? And some of it, and we can start off with plants.
Okay.
It's the third bullet point, but we'll talk about it first.
Sure.
And that's where, say, again, we have this landowner, they have a X amount of money they want to spend on, 10 to 20 acres, right? And they really want cattle. And from a research perspective, one of the first things you can do is pull it up on Google Maps, right? Look, see, or your whatever mapping platform of choice is, and pull up that satellite image. Look at that property, look at what date that image was taken, and then you can see it. It's like, oh, yeah, this property is 90% covered by trees. You're not going to graze many cows on it. And it's going to take a long time to remove those trees so that grass can grow and the cows can graze, right? And that, and for someone who really might want to raise cattle, if they end up with that property, they might be a little, and they're not expecting to have to work that much to bring that property into grazing land. They might not be super satisfied just because, they had this picture in their mind, right? Same thing, maybe, sure, looks like it, not a tree in sight, or maybe there's just a couple shade trees over there, looks beautiful from the map, go onto the, street view side, kind of start scrolling around, or maybe you're driving past it on the, way to Brookshire's or something like that, and driving past, you do a little windshield survey, and it doesn't have any fences. That's going to be problematic because, while Collin County is an open range county, you really want to have good fences to keep your animals in. And big part of that is, fences are expensive, or at least for any fence that's worth having, that can really add a large price tag to what that landowner would need to do to put in new fencing. Or maybe it's just very, a little dilapidated, hadn't been touched in maybe 20, 30 years, and, all your barbed wires kind of got a nice big sag in the middle of it between the posts. Well, that's going to take effort and time to fix up,
Yeah, you said a lot of great things there. One thing that I didn't hear you say, and we're going to test your Aggie on this, is you didn't use the word longhorn. Is that kind of like a problem that you just like stay away from that word and you just say cattle instead?
Well, there are a lot of different types of cattle.
I thought I was going to get a hiss out of you at the very least.
I'm on good behavior today,
Okay,
Michael,
all right,
so,
that's fine.
But and you never know, there might be some T-sips watching.
All right, there you go. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but Longhorns are a very hardy breed of cattle and they're very iconic. But, just like any other breed, you have to recognize they come with some challenges, right? So Longhorns, for example, they have long horns, and those get tangled in things. So if you're looking, maybe you have if you have hay, I recommend you have a hay ring, but if you have Longhorns, their horns can get tangled in it, right? And just some potential issues like that to look out for. And then just from a, agro-tourism standpoint, those Longhorns can be incredibly, if they have good temperament, they can be incredibly friendly, but even a very friendly cow, it can be absent-minded and then accidentally cause damage with those horns. So you just need to be aware, of what is the animal that you want and what are, maybe some limitations of it. Same thing, and I could go out and talk about maybe Brahman cattle.
That's a good one. I'm so glad you got to that.
Yeah, they're really cool, really iconic. They got that little hump on the back of their neck.
And they're like this big. Is that how tall they are?
No. So these are like full-size cattle.
Oh, no, I want the minis.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I want
like
the mini cattle.
Like the snack pack cattle.
Yeah.
Those are really cool too. But also, again, when you get to miniature breeds, sometimes they can have health issues that the full-size ones don't. So it's just a matter of doing a little bit of research, a little due diligence on hey, what kind of cow do I want? What am I looking for in a cow? Do I want one that's low maintenance? Do I want one that is cute first and foremost? Instagram cows are just as valid as beef cows, as long as you maintain them right. But really it just comes down to what are the goals of an operation and how does that fit within that picture? Let's see.
So my question is, I have a bunch of soupy land. So down by the lake, I kind of have this where it drains in and it feels soupy. I want to put a tree down there to take care of that and soak up all that water and make it work over a period of time. What kind of tree do I want to put there?
So, the kind of trees that like to have their feet wet are going to be things like pecan trees, of course, state tree of Texas.
Okay.
And then you get all the nuts. Okay. And you could do bald cypress, which you need to be a little bit careful because they put those little nodules up that come out of the ground.
What about
willows.
cottonwood?
Cottonwoods can work. Just the thing with cottonwoods and some of those other, dogwoods, things like that, is they aren't quite as long-lived as pecans. And it's not necessarily a 5-year thing or even a 30-year thing, but, if you're buying a property and you plan on keeping it for generations, in 50 years, maybe planting that cottonwood tree right next to your barn or right next to your, the dock for your John boat, that might fall over, might just keep an eye on it.
Okay, so I'm going to go pecan. Interesting. All right, good.
Yeah.
Enough said. You said it first. I'm going to take your first cue and roll with that bad boy. So you talked about fences.
Yes.
Your favorite fence. Like you walk up to that fence, you're just like, that's a nice fence.
For me, growing up on with land down in Central Texas. It's a good, straight T-post, barbed wire fence, probably a high tensile steel, barbed wire, 4 or 5 strand, with good metal end braces. So because on the end, all that wire is under real high tension, and so those braces on the end need to be very stout. And when you see a pipe brace on the end of that, or H braces in the middle, you know that they put in the time to put a really good fence in, and that's going to last a long time.
Yeah, so I'm currently in the middle of removing some of them up the lake, and so what happened is they put all that in there, and I was going to dig some of that out, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna need a little bit more time here or a machine, because they just put so much concrete in there on those posts on the corners to tie that bad boy down, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And I found out, like stupid me, taking the T-post out, much easier if you have a T-post remover.
Yes.
That's like the best tool ever if you're going to put one of them, if you're going to try to take one out.
Yeah. No, that is absolutely the case. And that's one of those things where, especially in agriculture, oftentimes, there's typically a specialized tool for the job. Or at least you should try looking for it, because, again, like you said, a T-post puller can, if you're pulling 1 or 2 T-posts, maybe doesn't make a huge deal, but when you're pulling like 40, that will save your bacon.
It's crazy. It takes like 2 minutes. It takes like maybe 30 seconds. You like just jump up and like down, and you're like, wait, it's done? If not, you're just like, my back, and what am I doing? And like, what is this all about? And the mess you make. And
yeah. Well, and when you use a T-post puller, they come out straight, so you can reuse them if you need to.
No,
maybe you want to fence somewhere else.
No, it's like totally a good thing. It's probably one of the best things that you can buy. Probably one of your first items that you're going to buy if you buy an ag property.
And you've got a barbed wire fence with T-posts.
Yeah, that would be good. If not, just buy one just because. Support the T-post industry.
Put it on the mantle over your fireplace.
Yeah, that'd be a great thing. But okay, instead of like some Longhorns or something like that. All right, and then talk about ponds. You talked about those need to be fixed up.
So ponds can be really tricky, right? And that's for 2 reasons. One, especially on a smaller property, they take up a lot of space, which is, basic things are basic. But when you think about it, if you have, say, 10 acres and you want 2 cattle, and you have a half-acre pond, suddenly you're down to 9.5 acres of grass. And so that means, every time you take away grass, that means you're going to have to feed more hay potentially. So it's just something to think about, just in the planning side. But also, ponds can be tricky to manage because you're trying to maintain an artificial aquatic ecosystem in a sense, right? And so it's all about a balance of things. You want some fish, but not too many fish. You want, some algae is good. You don't want too much algae. Same thing for pond weeds, right? They all have a role, but when something, becomes too dominant, then suddenly you can have a lot of issues. So, if I'm going on a property or I'm looking at a property and I go out and I look at a pond, one of the first things I'm going to look for is how much of that pond is covered with weeds or algae, right? Is it 10%? Yeah, 10, 20%. That probably isn't too bad. It's mostly around the edges. The middle's clear. There's a lot of, navigable, kind of non-weed filled water. That's good. Those weeds provide a valuable habitat for fish and other creatures. But if the whole thing's choked up in algae, or it looks scummy, that means that there's a management problem there. Now identifying that is probably a whole episode in and of itself. I've given 4-hour courses just on pond management, but it's, just that initial size up. Does this look, like it's going to require a lot of work? Does it look like it's going to be okay? And that's just something you got to get your eyes on, and it fluctuates throughout the year. Right now, this time of year, you have a lot of, I get a lot of algae calls for ponds because that's when you have, normally the algae's underwater, the water gets hot, that algae dies, floats to the top, suddenly everyone sees the algae that they didn't necessarily think was in there. And at that point, it's too late to treat. But, in February, going out and looking in the water, sometimes you can see where that algae is starting to develop. And then, if you need to make a treatment, you can more effectively make a treatment then.
All right, we're going to play a quick game. You have 3 options. So the game is going to be called Keep It, Kill It, Relocate It to Your Frenemies. Okay, so we're going to go through a couple of quick things here for you. And so item number 1, tarantula.
Tarantula? I would relocate it. Those guys eat good bugs.
Okay.
And more importantly, they eat the bad bugs that I don't want either. Now my wife might not agree with it, which is why I'm not keeping it.
Okay.
But, I'll let him do the good work, somewhere else.
Rat snake.
Rat snake? Oh, I'd definitely keep that.
You'd keep that?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Sure, they look kind of mean, but when they bite, it doesn't hurt that bad, and they aren't venomous. And they eat a lot of, mice and rats and other common house pests that, all the pests that you can manage outside the house without having to, go out and buy traps or anything, all the better, in my opinion.
Yep. Let's go with a Peking duck.
Peking duck. I would probably give that to a frenemy.
Okay.
Because,
Yep.
One, if they don't have any experience raising ducks, I think it would be very interesting to see what they would do with it.
No kidding, right?
And two, I mean, personally, I don't have a place to keep it. My bathtub, we have other, bathing uses for it. And I think bringing home a Peking duck and having it live in there it'd be cool, but it would be a little constrained for it. I'd like it to be able to move around and live free.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go with the rattlesnake.
Rattlesnake, that would be, that would be a real big it depends. If I'm walking my ranch and I see it, I'll probably just leave it.
Okay.
He's perfectly happy doing his own thing. If it's up by the house or somewhere, up by the kennels where we keep the dogs, then we might remove it.
And give it to a frenemy.
In some various state of aliveness, yes.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
I'm not very fond of catching live rattlesnakes with my hands.
Okay, well that's good. And so, what are some other ones? Let's go with a nutria.
Nutria, I would probably, honestly.
Yeah, nutria.
They taste pretty good. I might keep it.
Whoa, keep it.
Oh,
You'd harvest it.
That's a big thing in Louisiana. They originally brought them over for their fur, and they've been doing a lot of work coming up with good nutria recipes. I'm not even kidding on that. That's a thing. And you could say they're full of nutrients.
All right. Well done. Well done. All right. So those were some really good ones. Do you have any other ones you want to throw in there that people would be thinking about and might be considering, or you get questions on a lot?
I think, I'm a plant guy. So
Okay.
A lot of it is like, honey locust. That's a good frenemy plant. It's big old tree. Its thorns have thorns, and those thorns pop tires. I do not want them on my place. I don't know many people who like them, but everybody says a lot of very colorful things about them.
Okay.
Let's see. Poison ivy, I already mentioned
Yeah.
that one. That one's a great one to not keep.
Okay. Get rid of that.
But desirable ones, wildflowers.
Yeah.
Golly, everyone loves maroon bonnets, even the blue bonnets sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And just all the native wildflowers we get. Golly, you could go back in that April-May time frame, and everything's just alive with color. Always, that being said, going back to the rattlesnake though, before you plop your kid in those blue bonnets, always check for snakes.
Mm-hmm.
Because that always gives me the heebie-jeebies when I see people kind of like go chuck their kids on the side of the road in a patch of blue bonnets without looking.
Yep. And then the last one for us, we need to come up with one more for keep it or kill it or give it to your frenemies.
Keep it, kill it, frenemies. How about... oh goodness.
We're out. All right. That's all we got.
Cicada killers. There you go.
Whoa.
I'd keep those.
Yeah.
Those are come about every August. We get these big nasty old wasp looking deals. They're about this big. They're cicada killers. Everyone thought they were the giant killer hornets. They weren't. They were just native cicada killers. They're really cool because they are the biggest, ugliest, nastiest, like meanest looking hornets you've ever seen. But what's fun about them is they're basically harmless. The male ones will act aggressive, but they can't sting you, and the female ones, are extremely docile and they can sting. So you really have to be, pestering them in order to, get rid of them. But they're a bunch of fun, and they're one of my favorite insects to look at just because they're so unique.
Oh, I forgot. How do I get rid of chiggers?
Wear bug spray.
Okay.
That's the short version. So chiggers are actually a kind of mite. And so controlling them is very challenging. I mean, really, it comes down to if you can, areas with high traffic, keep your grass mowed. Um, if you're going to be tromping around, I mean, I like my field clothes when I go on farm visits, I treat them with permethrin, use bug spray. Um, you know, Putting some sulfur in your socks actually works pretty good. And but they are, there's not a lot you can actually treat the land for to get rid of them.
Okay. And will they eventually leave if I just like cut my lawn correctly? Like, because you don't have chiggers like in the city. It's really weird. So like, how do they just like disappear eventually?
So what it typically comes down to is where are they at, right? So you keep your grass mowed, it's here, they're hanging out down here. If your grass is this tall, they're hanging out up here. If they're down here, they maybe get on your shoes, but they aren't quite able to make the whole trip over to the top of your boots. But if they're up here, suddenly they have a lot easier access to get on you, and I guess because the way those chigger bites work, they aren't actually bites; they actually burrow into your pores and die.
Yeah, those are not really as fun as you would think.
No. Where for those of you just moving to Texas and Collin County, this time of year, probably starting in May, wear bug spray. Get the good stuff with the DEET or the Picardin, because otherwise you will be, when you get into chiggers for the first time, you will know and you will be miserable.
Yeah, it's a real problem. So we don't want to do that. Thank you for the suggestions. Sulfur in my socks. There we go. That's an interesting one.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Let's hit the bell. So much good info. Kept getting super long. That was more for me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hey, all right. So our word of the day today is going to be, let's see here, remediation, to remedy. And so what we're going to first do is we're going to define the word, use it in a sentence, and briefly discuss it.
Oh, good. I thought you were going to ask me to spell it.
No, I wasn't going to do that. So go ahead and read our definition if we could here.
Yeah, so my definition for remediate really is restoring and improving land from a deteriorated state into productive use, right? So really, like we talked about earlier in the show, really looking at assessing something and hey, we've got all these trees, or we've got this pond. How do we bring this pond from, kind of a weedy, algae-filled hole in the ground into something that, I can go bass fishing in or catch, or really appreciate the aesthetic value of it or use it for my cattle to drink from. So how to, really bringing something into, good use, however you define that.
Yep. And then so maybe using a sentence, I'll go with, this being an ag-related word, I would say my old lady wanted me to remediate our poison ivy problem, right? So that would be something that she wants me to take care of and do. So anything else that you want to discuss? You feel good about remediation?
I feel pretty good about it. I mean, and it's...
You should.
It's all about taking something and making it yours and making it better.
Yep, and if you need to make something better, anytime you can spend with Chase is going to do just that. In fact, he will hit you with the puns. He will hit you with straight knowledge, just like right in the face, and you're just like, wow, and you will have a great time. Thank you very much. Let's hit the bell.
All right.
1 second here. All right, so now what he does is this behind the scenes. So it's still on there. We have the microphone on so they can hear us and we can hear Omkar. But we got to just get to take some pictures.
Cool.
So these will be used as our thumbnail. If you have your coffee, just hold that bad boy up and take a smile. Perfect. I got the picture there. He'll count us down on each of these next ones, and we'll talk through some things and take some pictures. Go ahead, Omkar.
Yes. So first topic we covered was who is Chase Brooke. So
who are you? What defines you? Do you want to use your thing?
Yeah.
I'm gonna point at you. Okay. So that's who he is. He's the man with us. Are you sure you don't want like a big knife? Do you have a pocket knife on you?
I mean, I have a little knife.
You have a little knife?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Do you want to pull that out? Does that speak about you? No, it doesn't. Okay, let's go, Omkar. Got it. Perfect. Okay, thank you.
That is a nice knife.
letter
second
opener.
topic was
Oh, from an old file?
Yeah.
land and real estate.
Land and real estate. Okay, I'm gonna hold up my rocks.
Yeah.
Hey, you can hold up some rocks
Rural
here.
land. Yeah.
Those are from different spots here. So yeah, that's what I have there on the back.
Okay. And now,
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so this is my rock collection. So that one there is from, we did rim to rim to rim.
Oh, nice. On
We
the
did that
Grand
big
Canyon.
hike. Yeah. So I
Nice.
just keep different ones, right? From
Nice.
different places, and they're
That's
they're
cool.
each different things that I've been to. Just something to
I like it.
collection wise.
Yeah. One of
Yeah.
my good friends is a geologist.
Oh yeah?
So he's always educating me about, all the cool rocks that I don't appreciate quite as much until he
Mhm.
points them out.
Yeah. Well, our son's a geophysicist.
Ooh,
Yeah, a
nice.
marine one, specifically getting his PhD.
nice.
All right, next phrase here.
land improvement and remediation.
Land improvement and remediation. How about your book? Yeah, it's like you're writing something down. Oh, we missed that one. All right, ready? Hang on here. Go ahead. Perfect. That'll work there. And then what do we have?
Okay. And real estate word of day was remediate.
Remediate. Okay. So to remediate, I suppose you can just hold your phone up. We're going to be looking something up here. But you got to hold it up enough that we see.
Okay.
Perfect.
Now,
All right, we got that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Omkar. Sorry I held you over a little bit too much today, but this guy's just got so much knowledge.
yeah, definitely.
He does.
This is the best content. Yeah.
It is, right?
This is what we need. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you, Amkar. Appreciate it, man.
Let me turn this off.